My name is Lily Adams. I'm 34 years old, and 17 days before my younger sister's wedding, I opened an email that split our family wide open. My parents laid out 5 non-negotiable conditions. If I wanted a seat inside that wedding ballroom, I had to drop every financial complaint I'd raised against my sister, sign a strict confidentiality agreement, hand over my legal claim to our grandmother's coastal property, write a $25,000 check toward her wedding costs, and stand up in front of every guest to deliver a public apology for tearing our family apart. At the bottom of the message, my father scrawled one blunt line: "Complete all 5 and you will be allowed to attend." I read the entire email twice, then spotted the attachment they expected me to sign before midnight. They thought that tight deadline would scare me into compliance. Instead, it made everything crystal clear. I typed just 4 words in reply: "I decline all 5. I hit send without hesitation right after. I booked an oceanfront beach suite in Malibu for the exact weekend of the wedding. Then I called a courier to arrange delivery for one final wedding gift. On the surface, the box looked elegant, perfectly fitting for a bride who'd turned her wedding into a 300-person staged performance. But tucked inside was something my sister had spent 2 whole years making absolutely sure no one would ever see. I knew she planned to open every important present on stage. She'd already instructed the master of ceremonies to highlight every expensive gift from key family members for all the crowd to witness. What Natalie never anticipated was that my package held no jewelry, no cash, and certainly no apology letter. Inside was a detailed timeline, a damning voice recording, and official paperwork featuring a signature that looked identical to mine. But it was a forgery before I walk you through exactly what she said the moment she opened that box. And everything that unraveled afterward, I want to ask you something quick. What time is it where you are right now? Where are you watching this story from? And what does the weather look like outside your window? I'm genuinely curious how far this story travels across the world. Let me start with Natalie, the younger sister I'd spent most of my life bending over backward to support. Growing up, our parents operated by one unspoken rule: every mistake Natalie made counted as an emergency, and the rest of us were responsible for cleaning up the mess. Out in public, she was effortlessly charming. She handed out genuine compliments and made everyone feel special and chosen the second they spoke to her. Behind closed doors, she measured every single relationship based on what she could gain from it. When she needed money for her college tuition deposit, I lent her the full amount. When she quit her marketing job after only 6 months, I stayed up late rewriting her resume and covered 2 months of her rent. Once she launched her luxury event planning company, I connected her with 3 high-value clients straight from my accounting firm. Every single favor came paired with the same promise: she would pay me back once her business stabilized. But things never stabilized. Those promises just slowly shifted into new requests. Our grandmother saw this pattern long before anyone in the family was willing to admit it. Before she passed away, she left Mariners Point, her beautifully restored coastal venue, to Natalie and me as equal co-owners. The will included a strict clause: both of our signatures were required for any loans, property sales, or major renovation work. The house carried so many precious childhood memories, but it also brought in steady income from small weddings and corporate retreats. I managed all the financial books, and Natalie handled marketing and client promotions. That arrangement worked smoothly until she got engaged to Daniel Mercer, a successful restaurant developer. He was thoughtful, grounded, and fully convinced Natalie had built her business entirely on her own, with zero financial help from family. I didn't dislike him. Honestly, that made the whole situation far worse. 6 months leading up to the wedding, I spotted an unfamiliar loan payment listed in Mariners Point financial ledger. I'd never approved any new line of credit. The lender's description was vague, and when I brought it up to Natalie, she laughed it off. She claimed it was just temporary financing to cover venue renovations. I pushed hard to receive a full copy of the loan file, and she kept delaying. My parents stepped in, telling me not to create unnecessary tension right before the wedding. Eventually, the lender sent over partial documentation, and my blood ran cold. It was a commercial loan worth $240,000 secured against Mariners Point. Attached was what appeared to be my electronic signature. I had never laid eyes on this document. I never authorized a single cent of that loan. I confronted Natalie privately about the forgery. She did not deny she'd used the money. She explained her wedding budget had ballooned far beyond expectations, her event company faced crippling cash flow shortages, and Daniel's new restaurant needed emergency bridge funding. Then she leaned forward across my desk and fixed me with a sharp stare. "You own half of something valuable. I needed you to act like family." I told her a forged signature was not what family did for each other. She rolled her eyes and accused me of pure jealousy, bitter that she was the first sister to walk down the aisle that same evening my mother called. She insisted Natalie had only made a technical mistake, and all of this could easily be fixed if I signed retroactive consent for the loan. Soon after, my father sent another message, reminding me how embarrassing a formal investigation would be for our entire family. I refused outright. 2 weeks later, those 5 brutal conditions landed in my inbox. That confidentiality agreement was never simply about how I behaved at the wedding. Buried deep on page 6 was fine. Print designed to release Natalie, my parents, their businesses, and the lending company from every single claim tied to those questionable financial decisions. The demanded public apology wasn't an olive branch to heal conflict. It was crafted to paint me as irrational and unstable before I could ever pursue legal action over the forged loan. The $25,000 wedding contribution would replace funds already missing from the venue's bank account. Surrendering my ownership share of Mariners Point would hand Natalie full, unrestricted control of the collateral tied to that massive loan. For the first time, I understood this wasn't just a list of personal insults thrown my way, it was a coordinated plan. They weren't offering me permission to attend a wedding. They were demanding I erase all evidence of their wrongdoing while smiling for family photographs. I forwarded every email, document, and screenshot directly to my attorney. Then I picked up the phone to call my closest friend, Emma Reed. We'd known each other since graduate school, and years prior, she'd been the only person to warn me, loyalty without firm boundaries quickly turns into endless unpaid labor. She listened quietly without interrupting as I walked her through every detail. When I finished speaking, she asked one simple question. "Do you want people to finally understand your side of the story, or do you want to protect yourself legally first?" I told her I wanted both. She warned me I might have to choose the order. Protection comes first. That night, I placed a formal fraud alert on my credit report, submitted a request to obtain the complete original loan file, and instructed my lawyer to notify the lender that the signature on record was disputed. Then I locked in that Malibu vacation rental that getaway was genuine. I desperately needed distance from the wedding, and from the version of myself my family expected me to be always compliant, always willing to sacrifice my own interests to keep the peace. But that carefully prepared gift was also very real. Natalie had spent months designing an elaborate gift ceremony. Selected family members would step forward to offer blessings and present luxury gifts before the wedding vows officially began. She'd even emailed me twice, begging for a heartfelt family tribute video to play on the ballroom's large screen. I decided to give her exactly what she asked for, a complete, unfiltered record of exactly what our family had become. I prepared everything with the same rigorous precision I used running forensic audits. For my clients, I had no intention of screaming, crashing the event, or begging 300 strangers to believe me. My plan was simple. I would let timelines, bank transfers, verified signatures, and Natalie's own recorded words speak for themselves in that room, the same room they ordered me to enter silently and obediently. 3 days later, Emma and I were settled in Malibu. We sat at a narrow dining table covered in spread-out bank statements, loan exhibits, property records, and pages of color-coded notes. The ocean stretched visible outside the windows, yet I barely glanced in its direction. Every new piece of evidence we uncovered drove home a terrifying truth. Those 5 conditions were far more than parental pressure. They were a deliberate cover-up. The full loan file arrived first. Investigators traced my supposed electronic signature back to an internet address, registered directly to Natalie's office. All identity verification security questions were answered, using private information only close family would know. The name of my first employer, the street we grew up on, and the exact month our grandmother passed away. The lender also held a scanned copy of my driver's license. I remembered handing that copy over to my mother the previous year. She claimed our family insurance agent needed updated identification paperwork. I called her to ask how Natalie got access to that file. Her denial came far too quickly to feel honest. Emma watched my face as I hung up the call. "You don't believe her," she said plainly. I admitted I no longer knew what to believe. No one ever warns you about this part of betrayal. Finding out people you love lied to you doesn't instantly fill you with courage. It makes you question every single happy memory tied to them. I thought about my mother bringing soup to my bedside whenever I was sick, my father patiently teaching me how to drive, Natalie sleeping on my apartment floor after a brutal breakup with her ex. Those good memories didn't disappear just because they'd been weaponized to gain access to my trust. They felt contaminated, and that hurt worse than any argument. I pulled up Mariners Point's transaction history and tracked exactly where that $240,000 went. $90,000 flowed straight into Natalie's event company. $68,000 transferred to a vendor listed as Mercer Hospitality Design, the business connected to Daniel's restaurant project. $42,000 covered wedding deposits. Another $27,000 cycled through my parents' consulting firm before being sent back to Natalie framed as a family gift. The remaining funds vanished into administrative fees and overdue bills. The money landing in Daniel's accounts troubled me deeply, but the transaction description labeled it an investment. It was entirely possible he believed that capital came purely from Natalie's personal savings. I still couldn't tell if he was involved in the scheme, or if he was just another person being manipulated. Then Emma uncovered the first major twist. Hidden within a shared online archive was a spreadsheet projecting property ownership after the wedding. Natalie listed herself as sole controller of Mariners Point, Daniel marked as a future investor, and my name sat under a column labeled Released Interest. The document was dated 2 full months before my parents sent over those 5 demands. Next to my name, Natalie had written one line, "Will sign to preserve invitation." I stared at those words until my vision blurred. She wasn't just hoping I would agree to their terms. She had fully calculated that I would. My lifelong urge to avoid embarrassing the family was listed as an asset on her spreadsheet. I ached to pick up the phone and confront her with everything we found. But Emma stopped me cold. "She's been planning around every single one of your typical reactions for years. Do not give her a new response to build her next plan around." We kept digging through old message threads, and that's when I found the voice recording. Natalie sent it late one night after drinking too much at an industry conference. Back then, I dismissed it as one of her dramatic, emotional late-night rants. Now every word hit differently. On the audio, she said our parents were finally handling Lily. Once I signed all the wedding paperwork, the loan would become jointly tied to both of us, making it nearly impossible to challenge. And Daniel would never need to learn the true origin of the restaurant funding because he planned to pay everything back once his restaurant opened. Her tone was casual, almost bored. At the end, she laughed. "She'll be angry for a month, then she'll fix it like she always does." I played that recording twice. The second time, I felt no rush of victory. I only felt shame because I recognized that pattern just as clearly as she did. Time and time again, I fixed her messes. I protected Natalie from angry creditors, upset employers, burned bridges with old friends, and our parents' disappointment. I used to call that love, but admitting it was fear would have forced me to set boundaries much sooner. That recording became the emotional core of the gift I prepared. I didn't want my presentation filled with petty childhood grievances meant to humiliate her. I wanted to lay out a clear chain of adult choices: the forged signature, diverted venue funds, the fake release agreement, the scheme to keep Daniel in the dark, and my parents' active efforts to force my compliance. We put together a 12-minute video built entirely on authenticated official documents. No dramatic background music, no personal insults. Every slide showed a date, a dollar amount, and the source of each transfer. The final slide carried one simple sentence: "A wedding cannot create trust where fraud has been used to manufacture consent." I also sealed 3 separate folders inside the gift box. One addressed to Daniel, containing the complete transaction trail linked to his restaurant investment. One for my parents, holding formal notice from my attorney demanding they preserve all relevant records. The last envelope belonged to Natalie. Inside was a copy of the 5 conditions, my 4-word refusal email, and an official legal demand requesting repayment of the stolen funds, plus immediate removal of her management access to Mariners Point. On top, I added a handwritten note. You asked for a public apology. This is the public accounting. Emma read the note and told me it came across as cold. I told her cold was far safer than cruel. This gift wouldn't automatically create consequences. It would strip away the secrecy that had shielded her from facing those consequences for years. Still, as I sealed the walnut gift box shut, I wrestled with a heavy question. Is revealing the truth in front of 300 wedding guests justice, or simply punishment? I didn't have a clean, easy answer. All I knew was every private conversation about the loan ended with pressure, flat-out denial, or another document pushed toward me to sign. Public reputation was Natalie's most valued shield if I wanted to break that cycle. I needed to place the undeniable facts where her carefully curated image could no longer cover them up. Next came figuring out how to deliver the box. I refused to sneak into the wedding venue, pretend to be a vendor, or rely on secret recordings from guests. Luckily, Natalie created the perfect opening all by herself. Her wedding planner sent every close relative a schedule for the legacy gifts ceremony, a 40-minute segment before vows where selected presents would be opened live, with an active live stream running for remote attendees. Natalie designed the entire segment to showcase the perfect, enviable life she wanted everyone to believe she built. My name was still printed on the agenda for the final presentation slot, labeled Sisters Tribute Video. It seemed my parents truly believed I would cave in before their midnight deadline. I emailed the wedding planner directly. I explained I would not be attending the wedding in person, but I intended to honor my scheduled tribute slot. I attached the finished video file, shared the courier tracking number for the gift box, and asked for written confirmation the sealed folders would remain inside until Natalie opened the package on stage. The planner wrote back to say Natalie personally insisted on featuring my contribution. Family reconciliation was a key part of the wedding's public narrative. The level of irony was so precise I almost laughed out loud. My attorney reviewed every single item before the package shipped. She also sent the lender a formal affidavit disputing my forged signature and requested an immediate freeze on all further withdrawals against Mariners Point. We didn't ask the bank to make an announcement during the wedding. We didn't need to. Once the fraud report entered their system, Natalie would instantly lose access to the remaining credit line, and the lender would reach out to every guarantor listed on the loan paperwork. At 9:12 the following morning, my father called. He skipped all greetings and cut straight to the point. "What did you tell the bank?" he demanded. I replied that I simply told them the truth. He warned me contractors, vendors, and Daniel's restaurant could face serious financial harm as a result. I asked him why a forged signature on my property was acceptable to everyone, only when I bore all the risk. "This is bigger than one signature," he said. That single sentence revealed far more than he intended. I pressed him whether he had known Natalie was using my stolen identification documents. He stayed silent for 4 long seconds. Then he admitted my mother only passed along my driver's license copy because Natalie promised all paperwork was temporary. I jotted the exact time of his admission down on my legal pad. "You let her use my license," I repeated quietly. He responded that parents sometimes make impossible choices to hold a family together. I told him a family held together by unauthorized debt and forgery was already broken. He lowered his voice and offered a brand new deal: sign the release paperwork, attend the wedding quietly, and he would convince Natalie to pay me back slowly over 5 years. I asked what collateral secured that promise. "Trust," he answered. I ended the call immediately. My mother tried a different tactic. She sent old childhood photos of Natalie, then wrote that the choice I was making would define my character forever. I almost typed a reply but stopped myself. Instead, I forwarded every message to my attorney and turned off all phone notifications. That evening, Natalie called from an unknown number. Her opening words were sharp. "Do you have any idea what you're threatening to do?" She claimed the loan was nearly fully repaid, that Daniel would face humiliating public shame, and my parents risked losing their business. Then her tone softened into a practiced plea. She said she wanted me standing beside her on her wedding day, and sisters should never let paperwork ruin a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. I asked her plainly to confirm whether she forged my signature. She paused, then said I did what everyone needed. Emma sat across from me and heard every word over speakerphone. Natalie kept talking. You always land on your feet. I needed something that would finally be mine. There was no remorse in her voice, only entitlement wrapped up to sound like pain. I told her the gift box was already in transit to the venue. She shouted my full name and demanded to know what I'd sent. Everything you were certain I would keep hidden, I said. After I hung up, my hands shook so violently I spilled water all over the table. Emma didn't celebrate with me, she just helped me clean up the mess. The next morning, Emma and I checked into that Malibu suite I'd reserved. I set my phone open to the livestream link for the wedding venue. I didn't feel powerful or triumphant. It felt like I'd stepped onto a narrow bridge after lighting the road behind me on fire. At 4 p.m. California time, the legacy gift ceremony would begin in that ballroom 3 time zones away. At 3:47, the wedding planner sent one short message. Your package is on the presentation table. The bride insisted yours be opened last. Natalie still fully believed she retained control over how this story ended. The livestream feed flickered to life, showing a wide shot of the decorated ballroom. White orchid vines climbed every column, candlelight covered every table, and a glowing gold monogram with Natalie and Daniel's initials sat centered behind the stage. I could hear the chatter of over 300 guests as servers circulated with flutes of champagne. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then the MC stepped up to the microphone to welcome everyone to this pre-vow celebration. He explained the couple wanted to honor all family members who helped make their wedding day possible. Emma sat quietly beside me on the sofa. Neither of us spoke, one by one. Relatives walked onto the stage to present gifts. Daniel's parents offered an antique pocket watch. My aunt handed Natalie our grandmother's pearl hair comb. My parents announced they planned to contribute money toward the couple's future home. Every gift drew warm applause and carefully staged photographs. Natalie looked radiant. If my phone call had shaken her confidence, she hid it masterfully. When the MC reached the final gift slot, I watched my mother lean over to whisper something to Natalie. Natalie shook her head firmly. The MC smiled toward the livestream camera and addressed the crowd. Our last tribute comes from the bride's sister Lily, who could not be with us today, but sent something especially meaningful. A quiet murmur rippled through the entire room before anyone could stop her. Natalie stood and walked forward. My sister and I have had our differences, she said, wearing that familiar wounded expression she used to earn sympathy. But I believe today is about forgiveness. A wave of applause followed. I noticed my father did not clap once. Staff carried the polished walnut gift box onto the stage, tied neatly with an ivory ribbon. Natalie glanced straight at the livestream camera, as if she was locking eyes directly with me thousands of miles away. Whatever Lily sent, I accept it with love, she announced. She lifted the lid. On top rested a silver picture frame holding a photo of Natalie and me, as teenagers at Mariner's Point. Beneath the frame sat an envelope, marked read aloud. She smiled wide, clearly anticipating a remorseful apology letter, and handed the envelope over to the MC. He unfolded the single sheet of paper, and his facial expression shifted drastically after reading just the first line. Natalie lunged forward to grab the letter, but he'd already read enough for the live microphone to broadcast every word across the ballroom. You asked me to surrender my legal claims, my property interest, my silence, and $25,000 in exchange for permission to attend your wedding. I declined because consent obtained through pressure is not true consent. The entire ballroom fell dead silent. My mother shot up out of her chair. Natalie snatched the letter and scanned every remaining line. Turn off the microphone, she hissed. The MC glanced toward the planner, unsure how to respond. Then the large ballroom screen switched on automatically, launching the tribute video right on schedule. The first slide displayed the exact 5 conditions my parents emailed me. The second slide highlighted the hidden release clause buried on page 6 of the confidentiality agreement. Guests leaned forward, reading closely. Daniel stepped closer toward the screen. Natalie rushed toward the control booth to shut the feed down, but the planner blocked her path. She reminded Natalie the presentation was approved under her own written instructions. Slide 3 appeared, showing the $240,000 loan, the disputed forged signature, and the office internet address traced back to Natalie's workspace. Daniel turned toward her sharply. Why is Lily's name on that document? Natalie claimed everything shown was misleading and taken out of context. The video cut to a color-coded transfer chart, $90,000 to her event company, $42,000 covering wedding deposits, $68,000 routed to Daniel's restaurant project. His face paled the moment he saw his business listed there. You told me that capital came straight from your retained earnings, he said. Natalie reached out to grab his arm, and he stepped backward out of reach. My father pushed through the crowd toward the stage, shouting that private documents were being presented out of proper context. Right then, the audio speakers crackled to life, and Natalie's own voice echoed through the ballroom. Once Lily signs, the loan becomes too shared to challenge. Daniel never needs to know where the restaurant money originated. Her light, careless laugh followed. It sounded far sharper through the venue speakers than it did on my laptop back in Malibu. Natalie froze for one heartbeat, nobody moved. Then she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Shut it off. Shut it off right now." That scream wasn't fear of the information inside the box. It was pure terror, hearing her private, confident scheme exposed as public evidence for everyone to witness. She grabbed the silver photo frame and slammed it onto the stage table, knocking over a tall glass vase. Water spilled everywhere. Daniel picked up the envelope addressed specifically to him inside. Sat the full transaction trail, plus a letter from my attorney advising him to hire independent legal counsel before signing any marriage license or combining shared assets. He read the first page slowly, then looked at Natalie like he was seeing her for the very first time. The final slide popped up on screen. This presentation has also been shared with the lender and independent legal counsel. No one in this room is being forced to pick sides. You are only being asked to look at the official record. The video ended. No closing music, no dramatic photograph, not one image of me, just a black screen. Thick silence hung over the ballroom for several seconds after the screen went dark. Then every guest started talking all at once. Daniel's father pulled him aside for an urgent conversation. My aunt turned to my mother and demanded to know if those 5 conditions were real. 2 of Natalie's business clients stood up and headed for the exit while scrolling through photos they'd taken of the transfer chart. The planner muted the livestream's public audio feed, but she'd previously sent me a private backup viewing link, so I could still observe everything unfolding on stage. Natalie broke down crying, not quiet tears. She pointed directly at the gift box and shouted to the whole room that I fabricated every piece of evidence simply because I couldn't stand to watch her be happy. My mother rushed to her side, repeating over and over that all these documents lacked proper context. My father grabbed the microphone and begged guests to treat this as a temporary family misunderstanding. That phrase erased whatever remaining patience Daniel held on to. He walked to the center of the stage, still holding his folder, and asked Natalie a direct question. "Did you authorize money transfers into my company without telling me the true source?" She responded. She was only trying to help him succeed, he pressed on. "Did you forge Lily's signature?" She argued. "I would have approved the loan eventually." He asked whether my parents knew about the forgery. My mother tried speaking on Natalie's behalf, but Daniel raised one hand to stop her. "I'm asking Natalie." Natalie scanned the crowded ballroom, searching for someone to rescue her. For the first time that day, nobody stepped forward to defend her. She finally admitted she completed the online signature herself, because the lender's deadline was rapidly approaching. She insisted the property held enough value that the loan posed no real harm, and I'd always resented her success. Daniel flipped to another page in the paperwork. "This document says you plan to transfer Lily's ownership fully to yourself once she signed that release form. Was that also harmless?" Natalie's expression hardened instantly. Her tears stopped completely. She told him marriage required loyalty, and he should be defending her instead of interrogating her in front of strangers. He replied, "These are not random strangers. These are witnesses." My father moved toward Daniel, warning him against making an irreversible choice in such an emotional moment. Daniel answered the permanent choice had already been made when his business accepted funding obtained through fraud. He pulled the wedding ring out of his pocket. It had never been worn as the vows hadn't started. He set the ring down on the presentation table. There will be no wedding ceremony today. A collective gasp swept across the ballroom. Natalie grabbed hold of his suit jacket and begged him to reconsider. He pulled away and asked security to escort him to a private room to speak with his attorney and business partners. My mother yelled that I had destroyed the wedding single-handedly. Just then, the planner approached the microphone and announced there was an incoming video call request from me on the presentation system. I had never planned to appear live, but Daniel texted Emma using the contact information listed in my attorney's letter, requesting I answer 3 questions. Emma glanced over at me. I almost declined. Then I remembered how many family conversations happened about me over the years, while they actively blocked me from speaking for myself. I accepted the call, my face appeared on a smaller side screen, and the ballroom quieted again. I watched Natalie stare up at me, her makeup streaked, rage replacing all panic. Daniel asked if I ever authorized that $240,000 loan. I answered no. He asked whether I approved funds moving into his restaurant venture. His third question, did I demand the wedding be cancelled? I only disputed my forged signature and exposed the origin of the investment money. What you choose to do with that information is entirely your decision. Natalie shouted that I was pretending to be innocent, carefully timing the gift to humiliate her on her wedding day. I told her she was right about one thing. I intentionally chose a public setting. Every private conversation we'd ever had about this loan was used to pressure me into silence. She planned to broadcast my public surrender to prove the whole family supported her. You wanted my apology displayed on that screen. You wanted this room to witness a lie. Instead, I showed them verified documents. My father ordered the technician to cut the video call feed. Daniel spoke up immediately, let her finish speaking. I didn't launch into a long, fiery speech. I turned toward my parents and asked if they knowingly provided Natalie with a copy of my driver's license. My mother covered her mouth in shock. My father claimed it had just been an honest mistake. I asked whether they read the full release document before forcing me to sign it. He said their attorney assured them it would prevent future litigation. That quiet admission landed harder than any accusation I could voice. My aunt turned toward my mother and said you knew all of this was never just about wedding etiquette. My mother started crying. She explained they feared if the loan collapsed, Natalie's business, Daniel's restaurant, and Mariner's Point would all fail together. I responded simply, so you decided I should quietly take the fall instead. Nobody in the room argued against my words. Then Natalie made the comment that erased every last bit of sympathy anyone might have felt for her. She screamed across the ballroom because you could afford it. Those words echoed off every wall. She kept talking before anyone could interrupt her. You run a successful accounting firm. You don't have expensive wedding bills. You don't have children relying on you. Absorbing this debt would have hurt you far less than losing everything would hurt me. Daniel stared at her. My father stared at the floor. In one single sentence, she laid bare the core belief driving every single one of those 5 demands. My financial stability made me an easy target to exploit. I told her personal wealth does not turn theft into shared sacrifice. After that, I ended the video call. Updates trickled through text messages over the next hour. Daniel left the venue alongside his parents and instructed his lawyer not to file or sign any marriage license. His business partner froze all spending tied to the disputed investment capital. The lender suspended Mariner's Point's credit line and notified every person listed as a loan guarantor. 2 long-term clients canceled contracts with Natalie's event company before guests even finished leaving the ballroom. The wedding venue sent an immediate demand for the outstanding balance, but the card Natalie attempted to use was declined. It drew from the now frozen venue account. My father paid the outstanding bill out of his personal savings to avoid a costly lawsuit from the venue management. Natalie refused to leave the bridal suite until security notified her the rental booking expired at midnight. All the flowers, hired band, custom dinner menu, and monogrammed stage decor remained set up for a wedding that would never happen. I didn't feel any sense of victory. I shut my laptop and stepped out onto the Malibu balcony. The ocean stretched black below, only shimmering where moonlight touched the waves. Emma walked out beside me without saying a word. I'd wanted the truth to lead to real consequences. I never expected those consequences to weigh on me like overwhelming grief. The official investigation dragged on for 7 months. Digital records from the lender confirmed Natalie used my personal information from her office computer, and my mother emailed over the scanned driver's license copy. My parents avoided criminal charges by fully cooperating with investigators, handing over all documents, and admitting their role pushing me to sign the release paperwork. Cooperation didn't shield them from steep financial fallout. Their consulting business received $27,000 from the loan proceeds, so the lender classified them as participants in the unauthorized transaction. They were forced to sell their lake vacation condo, drain most of their retirement savings, and pay a large settlement toward the outstanding venue debt. My father stepped down from leadership roles on 2 nonprofit boards once the dispute became common knowledge within their community. My mother stopped speaking to multiple relatives who refused to frame everything that happened as my revenge. Natalie faced the harshest fallout of everyone. Her event planning company folded completely within 3 months after clients lost trust handing over deposits. Daniel permanently ended their engagement and returned every engagement gift he could locate. His restaurant project survived only after he replaced the tainted funding with legitimate outside investment, signing legal paperwork separating his business entirely from any claims Natalie might make against him later. He mailed me one single letter, thanking me for providing the documentation and apologizing for benefiting from money he never properly vetted. I believed his apology, but I had no interest in building any new friendship with him afterward. Some endings don't require new connections to feel complete. Natalie eventually accepted a plea deal on charges of fraud and identity misuse. She received a suspended jail sentence, court-ordered community supervision, and a massive restitution payment schedule that would hang over her for many years. She was legally required to transfer her half of Mariners Point into a court-supervised trust until the full debt was repaid. I became temporary property manager, not because I craved winning ownership of the venue, but because someone needed to reconstruct all damaged financial records and rebuild the venue's reputation. Within a year, Mariners Point turned profitable again. I set aside part of my management fees to start a small legal aid fund for people navigating financial abuse perpetrated by family members. That choice gave everything I endured purpose beyond simply seeing someone face punishment. My relationship with my parents never healed. They sent letters, holiday cards, and repeatedly asked me to attend family counseling. I agreed to one joint session during that conversation. My father said they'd always believed I was the strongest person in our family. I told him strength does not equal consent to carry everyone else's mistakes and consequences. My mother offered a quiet apology, yet she still questioned whether that public wedding presentation had truly been necessary. I answered honestly, maybe there was another way. I could have let attorneys handle everything entirely behind closed doors, but privacy had protected their deception for years, and they planned to use that wedding crowd to validate a fabricated version of events. I didn't regret letting those guests see the unaltered record. I only grieved that none of us stopped this toxic pattern long before it reached a packed ballroom. Natalie reached out to me one time after her sentencing. Her message had no greeting. Only this line, "You got everything you wanted," I replied simply. Number, I only kept what legally belonged to me. Then I blocked her phone number permanently. On the first anniversary of the canceled wedding, I traveled back to Malibu alone. I pulled out the old photograph from inside that gift box, the picture of Natalie and me at Mariners Point before money businesses and rigid family roles drove a wedge between us. For a brief second, I truly missed the sister in that photo. She built her entire future on one core assumption: I would always protect her from facing the truth. When that assumption crumbled, everything built upon it collapsed alongside it. Many people call what I did revenge. Others label it accountability. I still believe it was both, and the difference matters deeply. Revenge would have ended the moment she faced public humiliation that day in the ballroom. True accountability stretched far longer, requiring years of restitution, firm boundaries, and repairing all the damage her choices created. So tell me honestly down in the comments section. If your own family demanded you sign away your legal rights just to keep a perfect celebration intact, would you expose the truth publicly like I did? Or would you let lawyers handle everything privately and simply walk away from that toxic family dynamic? Thank you for staying with me all the way through this story. All characters, events, and outcomes are entirely fictional, created solely for entertainment and reflection. Never forget this warning: when someone constantly benefits from your loyalty but never lifts a finger to protect you in return. Setting firm boundaries isn't cruelty. It's finally correcting an unfair imbalance that's lasted far too long. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notification alerts, and share your thoughts with me below in the comments. I look forward to reading every single response.